you don't mind, you gotta give me a sheet. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll bring the meeting to order at 6:02. If you please stand with me. John, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. So, under item 5, adoption and approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
The second.
And Joanna seconds it. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second item is approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 8th. I'm going to recuse myself from this because I wasn't at the entire meeting, so I feel like I shouldn't have a vote. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next goes item number 7, which is special recognition reports and presentations. And we have Students of the Month, which is one of the favorite things we do as board members here. So Cliff, we're going to turn it over to you. And like I said, if we could start with Petaluma High School, that would be great.
Hello, I'm Jorge Villalobos, ASP Vice President and Derrick Captain. To start off, I'm going to call up Derrick Comey. Well-rounded, highly respected student, Derrick Comey has been chosen as the January Student of the Month for Petaluma High School. Derrick likes to be intellectually challenged and is known for being tenacious and working tirelessly to do his best. He is extremely responsible, trustworthy, patient, and well-liked by all. Derrick has many interests. His main activities include sports and working on his family's ranch. Derrick is a 4-year football player, a 4-year varsity wrestler, and was on the baseball team his freshman and sophomore years. He's an excellent athlete, giving his all, and is recognized by others as a team leader. He was chosen as the team captain of his varsity football team, has been a team captain for the wrestling team for the past 3 years. Derrick's family owns a large cattle ranch, and Derrick is an integral part of keeping it running. Besides ongoing chores, he shows beef and dairy cattle in FFA and has built projects in ag mechanics as well. Derrick was a member of the California State FFA dairy judging team in 2017 and then competed in the national contest where his team was second in the nation. He and his team were invited to attend and participate at the Royal Highland Show in Scotland, where he got to compete in an international judging contest. Derrick is now on the Petaluma FFA Ag Mechanics team. Derrick plans to continue to be an integral part of the agriculture industry by attending college out of state and majoring in agricultural systems. He would like to come back to run the family ranch when he completes college. Congratulations, Derrick.
So Derrick, I believe, has a wrestling match.
Yep.
Thrown off too. So we want to recognize. Do you have any family friends here?
Just my mom and my dad.
All right. Thank you. Congratulations.
Next up is Angelica Barajas. Angelica has always been a person that always wants to help those around her no matter how challenging the problem is. Because of this, she joined bilingual student ambassadors her sophomore and junior year to help translate for families who do not understand English. Angelica also likes to challenge herself academically. That is why she started taking advanced placement and honors classes. She hopes to become a nurse after high school, which is why her whole high school career has been focused on classes that will lead her to that career. She has also joined HOSA, which stands for Health Occupation Students of America, becoming vice president of that club. She's also focusing on expanding her knowledge on languages and trying to become trilingual. Although she is faced with challenging classes such as math and science, she works hard to persevere and doesn't let it bring her down. Hopefully she will attend college next semester and start working towards her nursing degree, where she will be able to help those who most need it.
Congratulations. All right, next up we have Casa Grande High School.
Hi, no, I'm Clea Rohi. I'm the ASB co-president at CASA. I'd like to congratulate our first student of the month, Axel Perales.
Thank you very much.
The dedicated and hardworking student, Axel always seeks to devote his personal best to every class he's in. He's taken honors courses ever since his first year in CASA High School and AP classes from the second, managing to be proficient in each one. He's also involved in the coding club for his second consecutive year, additionally being a member of the Honor Society and spending time in the gaming club. Once he graduates, he looks to head to a four-year university where he seeks to major in computer science and to achieve a career along the lines of software engineering. Axel is outside of the regular mold, for he is high-functioning autistic. However, he views it more as a strength rather than a weakness. He deems it the reason why he's excelling academically, as it causes him to pay attention to detail and stay so determined. He also attributes his success to his parents, who've helped him counter his issues and continuously improve on himself in all aspects, as well as taught him to be proud of himself and his Latino heritage. Without them and their guidance, he feels he may not be the very person he is today. Congratulations, Axel.
Next up we'll have Kenilworth Junior High School.
All right, so from Kenilworth High School, we have Isabel Thors. Come on out.
My name is Katie Hancock, and I'm an 8th grade leadership representative at Kenilworth. Kenilworth Junior High School is proud to introduce our first student of the month, Isabel Thors. Isabel was chosen Student of the Month by her team of teachers because she is one of Kenilworth's most exemplary student athletes. Isabel's teachers were enthusiastic in their praise of her. She is described by her science teacher, Miss Crozier, as motivated, helpful to her peers, and a pleasure to teach. Miss Menares, Isabel's math teacher, shares that Isabel works hard every day in class and regularly turns in great work. Isabel is friendly to all of her partners in class and always creates a fun environment to work in. She is a great math student. Not only did Isabel earn a 4.0 grade point average the first semester this year, but she is also a wonderful athlete. Isabel, who has been playing soccer for as long as she can remember, is proud to have been an important contributor to her 2017-18 State Cup championship team. When Isabel is not on the soccer field or excelling in the classroom, she can be found blazing the track for the Kenilworth track team. She competes in both the 100 and 200 meter sprints and was a valuable member of the 7th grade girls' undefeated 4x1 relay team. Isabel is looking forward to another great track season this spring at Kenilworth. Casa Grande can look forward to having Isabel as a member of both their soccer and track teams in the future. While Isabel enjoys and excels in all of her classes, she is really enjoying her photography class this year. When she is not in school, Isabel enjoys playing with her dogs, Moose and Lily. After high school, Isabel would like to continue her education and perhaps attend Stanford. While Isabel is not sure what she would like to study yet, we at Kenilworth are certain that Isabel has a bright academic future ahead of her. Isabel's mom, Michelle, added that Isabel is a very giving person. She really tries to make everyone happy. She makes us very happy. We are very proud of her. Congratulations, Isabel.
Do you have any family or friends here tonight? Congratulations.
Next up, we have Kevin Gutierrez Munoz.
Kenilworth our second Student of the Month, Kevin Gutierrez. Kevin was chosen the Student of the Month by his team of teachers because he is one of Kenworth's best students and finest citizens. Kevin has maintained an impressive 4.0 grade point average his first 3 semesters at Kenworth, and his teachers were eager to sing his praises. Miss Rudder, Kevin's math teacher, describes him as hardworking, respectful, motivator, and a leader. Miss Woldemar, Kevin's English teacher, enthusiastically added that Kevin is such a treat to have in class. He is kind to his classmates and takes the initiative to ask questions when he has them. Kevin is also both friendly and polite to adults, and even takes the extra step to thank the adults for their work. He is not only an outstanding student, but he is also a fine athlete. Kevin has been playing soccer since he was 3 years old and basketball since he was 8. Kevin has been an integral part of the Kenworth basketball team in both 7th and 8th grade. Kevin's proudest moment as a member of the Cole basketball team was dropping 15 points on crosstown rival Petaluma Junior High School this season. Kevin is looking forward to joining both the Casa Grande High School soccer and basketball teams next year. When Kevin is not playing soccer, he enjoys working with younger students at the Petaluma Boys and Girls Club. Kevin spends his time at the Boys and Girls Club helping students with their homework and coaching and refereeing basketball. After high school, Kevin would like to attend either Sonoma State or UC Berkeley and pursue a career in the medical field. Kevin's mom, Maria, added that Kevin is a very responsible student and is great about completing all his work. We are very proud of Kevin. Congratulations, Kevin.
All right, mom, sister, dad, brother. Thank you.
The next, so Petaluma Junior High School.
Our student representatives are all busy with extracurricular activities this evening, so here I am. I'm Stephen Schaefer, I'm the assistant principal at Petaluma Junior High. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet yet.
First up, we have Sydney Minka.
We are proud to present Sydney Manka as one of our January 2019 Students of the Month. Sydney was born on June 3rd, 2005 in Denver, Colorado. She moved here as a small child, being a student at Petaluma City Schools since kindergarten. Sydney is a quiet, yet incredible student athlete with a strong sense of purpose. Outside of school, Sydney participates in several activities. She plays competitive lacrosse, competing on both the local club and travel teams. For the last several summers, Sydney attended 4-H summer camp, and this coming summer, she looks forward to being a member of the staff for the first time. She also loves music and traveling. Sydney loves school. She is a model student with excellent grades and attendance. Sydney's science teacher is impressed with both her work ethic and her participation level. One of Sydney's favorite school experiences was 6th grade camp, where she really connected with friends and nature. Currently, Sydney is involved with the Bantam Buddies group, acting as a welcome ambassador for students coming mid-year. This is a perfect fit for a student with such a connection to her education. Sydney's big education goal is to maintain her grades and eventually attend a UC campus. Her father says that Sydney makes him proud every day, whether it is the diligence she applies to school, the fun she has playing lacrosse, or her dedication to being a camp staffer. I especially love how excited she gets about creative products, especially when she can team with others. And her mother adds, Sydney is really creative and is probably the funniest person I know. She loves lacrosse, skiing, and snorkeling, swimming in the ocean. She's also a loyal friend and has had the same group of great friends for years. Sydney Manka is truly a remarkable student and young woman. She's an excellent representative for Petaluma Junior High School, and we're happy to present her as one of our Students of the Month.
All right, family up here in the back, congratulations.
Next we have Andrew Heller.
Petaluma Junior High School is pleased to present Andrew Heller as one of the January 2019 Students of the Month. Andrew was born on August 17, 2004 in San Francisco. His family moved to Petaluma nearly 4 years ago, and we have been most fortunate to have him with us. In addition to being an excellent student with perfect attendance, Andrew is mature, friendly, and always ready to help. Since being at Petaluma Junior High, leadership class has been a big part of Andrew's life. He has taken on the responsibility of ASB treasurer and has been doing a very thorough job. He takes part in the organization of dances and other school events, helping to create a friendly and inclusive school environment. The vice principal comments that, as a 7th grader, Andrew was selected from among a group of highly capable competitors to be one of our student representatives here to the school board. He was extremely reliable and did an excellent job presenting Students of the Month. In addition to all of the extra time he puts into school here, Andrew voluntarily tutors 6th graders at Grant Elementary. Andrew plans on continuing his excellent school experience by eventually pursuing a college degree in computer science. Outside of school, Andrew spends a lot of quality time with his family. He loves playing tennis and attending sports events at Stanford University with his dad, and going fishing and hunting with his stepfather. He helps his mother around the house and the office and treasures the time he spends with his 80-year-old grandmother. Andrew also plays guitar and likes to program in his spare time. His parents and stepfather appreciate how dedicated Andrew is to his excellent grades, leadership class, and volunteer activities. They're very proud of his motivation, maturity, and obvious sense of responsibility. They remark about his natural ability to form healthy and caring relationships with peers and adults. Parenting Andrew has been a joy for all of them. Andrew Heller has been a boon to Petaluma Junior High School and the district. We are proud to present him as one of our Students of the Month.
All right, congratulations. So before we let you go, this is usually the best part of the meeting because we get to hear all about the great things that our students are doing. And all of us in our different roles, this is what we're all here for, is to help students, and we love to see their successes and love to hear the great things they're doing. It usually makes us feel very underwhelmed and unaccomplished. But you guys, great job. We want to also thank all the parents and the support systems that exist around each of our students. So let's give everyone a round of applause again.
On behalf of the board, thank you, Curtis, for bringing your kids to Petaluma City Schools. Absolutely wonderful stories. You're really getting good. So, thank you. Next we have 7.2, student report from McDowell Elementary. McDowell? Right.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. It's my great pleasure to be here this evening with 3 of our superstar 6th graders that are here to tell you all about the great things happening at McDowell. I will let them take it away.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and I'm Diego.
And I'm Jonathan.
We all have worked super hard on this. Hope you enjoy.
Our school vision is that all McDowell students are actively engaged learners and communicators. Our school community supports biliteracy, compassion, critical thinking, academic achievement, and contribution to our global society.
McDowell is a wonderful school. Everyone is respectful, and teachers really help out the students. A lot of people have achieved to speak another language, which is Spanish. The most important thing is that everyone is treated the same, and the staffs, teachers care. We want you to have a wonderful future.
In my opinion, McDowell is really focusing on art and creativity because we now have after-school programs like art class, ukulele, film club, media literacy, and math club. We're also doing a lot of empathy in a global world by teaching the little kids in assemblies to show respect, responsibility, compassion, perseverance, and how to be a good person.
Everyone in McDowell has all of these personalities. It does not matter how old you are. There's one thing we all share as a school, is that we don't like it when we see somebody that gets hurt. We don't stare, we help. If we see somebody getting picked on, we help McDowell on. We don't like it when people are sad, and we don't like when people are being rude.
As you can see, the picture on the right, we have a wonderful PE teacher. His name is Sam Prohorov, but we call him Mr. P, playing a PE game with the third graders. But you can see that when you're in fifth grade, he trains you for the West Side Relays. In the picture on the left, you can see that we have a new feature added to McDowell. It is called the Oasis. We have our wonderful sixth graders celebrating their new game place.
We have something new in McDowell, some beautiful murals made by Maxfield Bala.
These are some of the recently done murals. The lower left picture is our school monarch butterfly logo. The top right one is the beautiful mural of the little animals that come to our school during the spring and summer.
Big thanks to Petaluma Educational Foundation. Without them, we would never have our upgraded technology now. The people in the picture to the right are wonderful 3rd to 5th grade girls on the run. We also have awesome coaches that volunteer to be the Girls on the Run coaches. It is also awesome that the Girls on the Run have ran a 5K race, almost 20 laps on the track with their awesome coaches on the side, helping them persevere to finish, which they did. Thanks to our awesome Girls on the Run coaches.
We have our awesome sixth graders helping their buddies how to read by reading stories with them. It is very important that we have our sixth graders with us because all the little kids look up to them because the bigger kids are role models to the small children.
P.S. That kid with the white shirt is me.
On the top left picture, you'll see Joseph from local parks like Schollenberger teach kids about our ecosystem and what kinds of animals live there. The other two pictures are about students, parents, and teachers cleaning Washington Creek near our school.
This picture shows McDowell students walking proud in the walkathon. We do this every year, and a lot of kids enjoy this activity because this is like recess. You can hang with your friends and eat some fruit.
As you can see in the top left corner, we have magnificent people that come to our school and teach us what the wonderful art of music is. We as a school are so grateful that we have these people to help us play music and listen to it. The Santa Rosa Symphony are great people that do such wonderful music. Every time I hear them play, it's so calm and peaceful.
This is a picture on what our school is working on. We are getting to a great budget. If you come visit our school, you will see how much it has changed over time.
Yes, Navideña is a day where students can sing Christmas songs to their parents in Spanish and English. We do this to celebrate Christmas. Kids love this because there is food for us. This year, Tomales help fundraise for 6th grade camp. Everyone is having a good time. They get to see their friends. Then when it is time for you and your class to perform, you sing to your parents and the school.
This is the sixth grade class on the first day of school.
Thank you for watching our presentation. Do you have any questions? If not, we are so proud to be here, and I hope all of you had a good time. We wish you all a good day.
Thank you so much. Comments, board members?
Can I just say you all have really cool glasses? Like all three of you. It's awesome.
So I wanted to say to the three of you that 3 years ago, there were not sixth graders at your school. It was a K-3 school. And, you know, listening to you up here, you embody exactly what we wanted when growing the school back to a K-6. Because you've showed us in 5 minutes what a significant impact upper class students, 6th grade students can have on a school culture. And I want to thank you for being a role model for all of the students. And it just feels great because we knew this is what we were hoping for. And I see Miss Bailey in the back. She couldn't be any more pleased with you. Continue whatever you're doing. It's making a difference, and you're really
leaders.
Really impressive. Really cool.
Go back to sixth grade? Yeah, let's all go back to sixth grade.
So, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to take like a mini recess for 2 or 3 minutes. We know that the students here probably have homework and activities they want to attend, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the meeting. But as a teaser, Dave Rose is going to do a presentation next on vaping. And so if you want to hang around for that, we encourage you to do so. There's no admission costs at all for that. But for those of you that need to leave, this is the time to do it. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were in a
Wow.
Okay. Your husband, he's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. That's helpful.
ladies and gentlemen, let's reconvene, and we have the opportunity to listen to a wonderful presentation by David Rose. David, so we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Members of the board, staff, parents, and families, thank you for having me here tonight. Trustee Quinn, last meeting you asked about our protocol around vape devices and what we're doing to address a very significant issue that is facing our teens, our youth, and is spilling over onto our campuses. So we have some information for you tonight. We've been allotted about 45 minutes. If we were really going to go deep, this would be an all-day presentation. That's how much information, how much science, and really how much detail that we put into this as an issue across the board. We have some guests here from some of our community partners that are experts around this that will talk to some of these issues, but I wanted to start with what we do as a district and talk about policy versus practice. As a school board, you have a tremendous, huge stack pile of board policies that you're responsible for oversight and enforcement during the course of the school year. One of those is Ed Code 5144. I'm sorry, Board Policy 5144. It is one of the longest board policies that we have. It is actually 28 pages in terms of board policy. It encompasses all of Ed Code 48900. Ed Code 48900 is all of the events that a student, if their behavior is done under our jurisdiction, can be suspended for. As a board, your mandate to us, the staff, is this is against the rules. The consequences can be up to and including expulsion. We would like you to enforce this rule. We don't want students suspended. We don't want students expelled. We want you to use the best means necessary to correct, to change, to prevent those behaviors. As a staff, we take that challenge very seriously. We're very studious in terms of all of the work we do and all of the prevention that we have. So tonight, we're just going to talk about some of the things that we have in place. When we talk about this board policy, it says that these behaviors are against Ed Code and they are suspendable. There is no detail in board policy that talks about the number of days, the type of suspension, because a teacher can do a class suspension. The site can do an in-house suspension. There are a number of days of suspension, partial days that can go up to 5 days. Nothing in board policy speaks to that. What board policy speaks to is vaping is against the rules. It can't be done on school campus under the jurisdiction of schools. So that's where the practice comes in terms of what we do. As staff, we're looking at these issues individually. We're doing all that we can to first prevent these activities from taking place. So in the state of California, we have got one of the best measures that have lowered the use of tobacco by our teens based upon the work done in our schools, our health agencies, doctors, our communities, the coalitions that take place. The numbers of teen smokers up until about the last 5 years has just been incredible. It's to the point where, as an administrator 15 years ago, I was probably seeing maybe a pack of cigarettes a day on a school site. It has been years since I've heard one of my administrators reporting that they've seen a pack of cigarettes. Vape devices have changed that, and have changed it in a very significant way. So there's lots of data out there, lots of significant information that I'll leave it to some of our partners to talk about. But as we go through and we start looking at these types of activities, we need to come up with a response, because our bottom line prevention practice didn't work. The student violated the rule, even though they knew the rule was there. And then we want to respond to make sure that we avoid recidivism. And that's one of our biggest keys whenever we address a behavior that's taken place. We want to do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And so, as we talk about this and creating our practice, we have a behavior trend that is becoming very significant for us. So when we talk about 15-16, when we really started collecting data specific to vape devices, we had about one event every 3 days. 16-17, it's about the same. Last year, we're almost to the point where it was almost one a day. And we are on pace this year to get to that one event a day in terms of students actually bringing these devices on campus, possessing them, using them, and or trying to negotiate or sell them. This has become a significant issue for us. And so we're going to come up with a coordinated, thought-out strategic response to to prevent recidivism, to get the universal message out there, and to make sure that we're doing the best for our students, so that if the allure of these devices and the ingenuity of the companies that are behind these devices, if we can't beat them with our messages and prevent this from happening, we want to prevent the recidivism from taking place. And so we want to use what the law allows us to do, what Ed Code stipulates that we can and cannot do, and what our policy mandates us to do. When we look at the Ed Code, there are 5 codes that are specific to vape devices. B is vape devices are a dangerous object. And yeah, they're dangerous because they deliver dangerous chemicals, but we all know vape devices have a tendency to explode. We've seen that. That's out there, that information is there. That makes it a device of no reasonable use to a student on campus that becomes a danger to themselves and others. 48900C talks about intoxicants. Tobacco, nicotine, they are intoxicants. They become suspendable under 48900C. H is possession of use of tobacco, even though we typically don't suspend on first offense, because that is the practice of 48900.5. It talks about not doing a suspension on a first offense just for a tobacco violation, because typically there's been no counseling, no direct discussion to that student. It's been to groups, it's been in classes, it's been mass, so there hasn't been a one-on-one saying you shouldn't do this, but yet it is a suspendable offense. Anytime a student breaks a rule, it's defiance. There is not one junior high school student, not one high school student that doesn't know vape devices are illegal. There's not one. So if they choose to do that, they are in defiance, and that's a violation of 48900K. And anytime a teacher, campus supervisor, and administrator has to interact with that student, that's a disruption of normal duties. So that's where 48900K. And then last but not least, and probably the most significant one for us, vape devices are drug paraphernalia, right? They can be used for just vape juice. They can be used for just tobacco, which is also still an intoxicant. For nicotine, again, an intoxicant. But when we're seeing this happening on our campuses right now, we are getting dabs, hash oil, honey oil. This is marijuana. That's not the old guys like me. Marijuana on the street was 0.5% THC. The best stuff of that generation was the Maui Wowie, the Colombian Gold, right? So this stuff was up to 3% THC. When we're talking about hash oil right now that can be delivered in these vape devices, we're talking about a substance that's anywhere between 65 and 80% THC. We are not talking about a substance that's almost 100 times stronger than when marijuana was first introduced to our culture. This is a significant issue for us and one that we've spent a lot of time on. When we look at these issues, the things that are coming up, we want to make sure that we have our universal prevention message. Mentioned that before, talking about prevention of these types of activities. If it's not working, we want to come up with our targeted intervention, okay? And so, could you go to the next slide for just a second? When we've done presentations before for the board and we did an orientation presentation, this is the philosophy of what we do in terms of our prevention and intervention strategies. This is the basis of our campus climate presentation. So in that bottom story of that triangle is our universal prevention strategies. And so it includes these types of interventions and the things that take place to give students the basic message, to give parents the basic message of what is allowable, what is understandable, what the expectations are. Each site has its own set of universal preventions because each campus is different. They have their own clientele, they have their own environment, and they also have their own challenges. So there's not just one set of prevention strategies for all 15 of our campuses. There's 15 different prevention strategies that are going on out there. That's our universal piece. If that doesn't work, if the student doesn't abide by the rules, we move on to our targeted interventions. And this is where we're looking at doing that case management piece where we're talking specifically to that student about what their behavior does and how it fits into the rest of their academic life as a student. And we'll talk more about that going forward. But as we've talked before, the mental health counselors on the bottom of that page are one of the key components of this because we're talking about adolescents that are making decisions. Why are you making that decision? What got you there? What could you do to replace that behavior? You want to do this to fit in. You want to do this to connect. What a hard, difficult just mind-boggling pressure that is for adolescents to fit in when they see the number of our students in our community that are using these devices and how hard it is to say no. Counselors can help with that. And again, our experts are going to talk to you a little bit about how many of our youth are doing this, the proliferation that's out there, how it's on social media, how our students are just being bombarded with this as an issue. And so one of our last pieces of doing this is we make sure our partner agencies are connected with us in terms of our targeted interventions. We are educators. We're not doctors. We're not scientists. We're not psychologists, right? We are educators. And so we need to turn to these partners to have them give us the best advice to connect with us so that we can serve our students the best we can. Would you go backwards a few slides? One more. So to do this, we turn to our community partners. And in our effort to do this, I have 3 of our very, very long-term, well-connected community partners that are incredibly knowledgeable about what we do. We're going to start with Pam Granger. So,
at least you didn't say our old partners.
No. But Pam and I think have been working together for almost 20 years now on a variety of different topics, and going from Drug-Free Communities Grant to CHIPA to HC Squared to we ran out of room on the slide. All of the stuff that she's connected with. So I'm going to turn it over to Pam.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you, everybody. One of the things that doesn't say on the slide is that I've lived in Petaluma about 27 years, and I've got 2 grandkids every year. I have sort of skin in this game. So I'm here for 2 reasons tonight. One is to give you a background on electronic smoking devices, and the other is to hope that after you hear from all of us, that you'll discuss at a later date supporting our efforts in passing a tobacco retail license that would prohibit flavored tobacco products in Petaluma, amongst some other kinds of things, and perhaps you'll see why. So we've been tracking this sort of meteoric rise of electronic smoking devices, also known as e-cigarettes, e-cigs, hookah, hookah pen, mods, tanks, vapes, juuls, etc., for about a dozen years. So I'll do my best to sort of cram it in. I have to say that when I first heard about electronic cigarettes, I thought that it must be a joke, sort of like a pet rock. So it was about 2005, 2006, around in there, and oh boy, was I wrong. Electronic cigarettes have caught on fire with a whole new generation of smokers. And kids, what's interesting and sad is kids who would never dream of smoking a real cigarette, a combustible cigarette, are embracing, and for no particular reason other than we'll take a look, starting perhaps getting hooked on e-cigs. And the tobacco industry, big tobacco, has taken notice. What was once a market that was populated by small cottage industry has given way to big tobacco, who's bought some electronic smoking devices, some e-cig companies outright. And in some instances, they bought, just a generous share. So we'll look at, along the line, we'll look at the company called Juul, J-U-U-L, and they recently sold 35% of their business to Altria. You would know them perhaps better as Philip Morris. They have been only out there since 2015. They had a 621% increase by October of 2017, given to 2016, and they just surpassed Facebook as the fastest startup to reach what they call decacorn status, which is the $10 billion mark. Yeah. So what was first seen as a potential disruptor to big tobacco has now gone over to the dark side. So you can imagine this really has the public health community kind of not excited. It's part of an ongoing strategy right out of the Big Tobacco Playbook, as quoted by a friend of mine at the Lung Association. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the designs. On the leftish, back early on, the whole concept was cigarette lookalikes. So the idea was to have something that people would feel comfortable blending right in. They wouldn't feel like they had a pet rock in their lips. They, so they were starting off with disposable, and then they got some that could be refilled, and then it's gone on, and you can see where it goes from just about looking like a cigarette, where you couldn't tell at a distance, up until things, mods and tanks at the back that are well known for fabulous plumes of smoke you might follow, aerosol that you might follow down the sidewalk. And here we are. Remember, I commented that Juul started in 2015. Here we are in 2018, and they have all of those buddies and ones like them on the left. Ones look like pens. It could be a e-pen. Only have 20 to 25% of the market, depending on the source, and Juul has captured from 75 to 80% of the market. So we're paying a little bit of attention to them. Resembling a flash drive, pretty much like one I have in my purse, just in case tonight. They have gained exponentially in popularity, partially for their sleek design, partially for their flavors, and as perhaps you have seen, certainly some in the audience have seen, they're easily concealable, making them their possible use in at home or in the classroom, bathrooms at schools possible without the giveaway plumes. Juul, well, all electronic cigarettes have all was too big a word. Some of the early electronic cigarettes are offered in a non-nicotine version where we just flavor, right? And we'll get into the idea of, unfortunately, sometimes just flavors that are proved to be put in your cereal aren't the same as things that you should inhale. However, Juul delivers a higher concentration than many, just about all on the market. One of those little pods that are on the side there could deliver the equivalent of a pack of cigarettes, 20 cigarettes. And unlike their combustible counterparts, when you set them down, you don't lose part of your cigarette. It just goes out until you draw on it again. And so studies showed that some kids really have no idea that when they're using a Juul that there is nicotine. Juul does not sell a non-nicotine version. So you can imagine if it's the most popular at 75 to 80%, that and they're getting a potential big jolt. And we'll get into brain development a little later. Today it's Juul. I'm afraid tomorrow what it might be. So we'll take a look at what's the lure. So why are they doing this? Well, with electronic cigarettes, there's over 400 different manufacturers. The latest article I saw said that there are over 15,000 different combinations of flavors. Many of them are kid-friendly. So if you take a look at the slide, there's maple pancake on the left, vanilla cupcakes. You could get to the Curious George, the Daisy Duck, and there's Papa Smurf. There's the vapor, there's the Fruit Loops, that's the vapor version on the side. Not shown here are things like unicorn puke and cotton candy, etc. These are for adult smokers that want to transition, right? So one of the other things that I would like to point out is that there are no ingredient labels, so you can't have, at least when we buy soda, you can see how much sodium's on the container. There's a limited federal oversight. You probably have noticed that there hasn't been advertisement for combustibles on TV, on the radio, that, you know, it's really been prohibited for years. No regulations on that yet. So where are kids seeing stuff? Everywhere. And social media, you know, when Dave was young, there wasn't social media. So he had to rely on the doctors. You know, doctors recommend Camel. It had to be, you know, so now it's everywhere else. So another lure, modifiable, high-tech design. I mean, cool tricks. Can you? And this was just a quick look online tricks. Just YouTube. You too can learn how to purse your lips, use your tongue, and, you know, blow smoke rings. And I just wanted to show that was mostly guys that were doing this, but the women don't want to be left out. The seeing family and friends is always so lure. It's like, what are they doing? And they go, oh no, this is cool. This is harmless water vapor. You know, come try it, you'll like it. They believe that it's less harmful than cigarettes, but I hypothesize that's a pretty low bar. So less harmful does not mean safe. I just want to put that out there. It's sort of like jumping out of the 80th story building or out of that window, or at 30, you know, just take your pick. I've already said that kids often don't know that they're using nicotine, and we're concerned about there are physical health concerns. We'll take a look. Another reason why they're doing it is, what's the lure? Well, I talked about marketing. Okay, so this was real quick. All I had to do is you know, put out e-cigarettes, blue on the left. This was in this was Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, I'm sure. It says, just in case you can't read it, slim, charged, ready to go. Okay, okay, Pinterest, where I get my information on dinner and decorations, right? That's the big girls there. I tried to be as discreet as possible. There were other choices that I could have with where you'd be putting your vape device. Somehow I'm just not seeing this is what you need to have if you're an adult smoker and you want to go to a potential harm or death product. That's not just crying out to me. And on the right, blue, take back your freedom. I mean, this is truly just out of the big tobacco playbook. They are pushing freedom, sex independence, and sophistication just like in the old days. So let's take a look at some of the health consequences. Many people in the audience have studied this more than I. Those of you who are in education know that brain development goes on for quite a while. The trouble with teens and young adults is they aren't cooked yet. They aren't really done. And so using nicotine, regardless of how it's delivered, increases the risk of addiction. And you know, nicotine addiction is notoriously, it's a cute slide now, nicotine is notoriously hard to quit. You think of any friends you have that have tried to quit cigarettes, and an average 7 times if they're, you know, if they're lucky. And looking at the stick-to-itiveness of some of our young adults. And how does it, you know, work in the brain? Apparently, each time a new memory is created or a new skill is learned, stronger connections or synapses are built between brain cells. And young people look at addiction as just kind of a learned experience. And so they're prime. They're a little more ripe for addiction than adults are. So they're a little bit more vulnerable. And there's a complication that's brand new. I'm reading the news like crazy to get ready for this presentation. The FDA just had a little hearing on Friday because they're in a quandary. There are not approved cessation protocol out there for people under 18. And you've got kids, you know, as young as 11 that are using e-cigarettes. But if you look at Chantix and gum, et cetera, those are for 18 and above. So they're looking and trying to think about, well, this is kind of complicated. And Carly, you might recall, wasn't there going to be a workshop in Santa Rosa, people talking about cessation for youth? I meant to ask you when you had your computer so you could look, but so we're giving some thought to it, just cessation in general, not including E6. But there's a little complication. There's more complications. It's not just nicotine addiction. Besides creating addiction, nicotine can disrupt brain development, interfering with long-term cognitive functions, which may have to do with impulse control, may have to do with attention and learning. And you can imagine if a student's in a classroom kind of jonesing for a fix on their e-cig, they're not learning much. They're somewhere else. Nicotine is also what they call a vasoconstrictor. Okay, so that means that it closes your blood vessels, and yet it also increases your heart rate. And so that means that you've got the heart pumping and trying to get blood going through a more narrow space. And that puts a toll, albeit a little bit longer, down the road with for students. But that's an issue for heart disease. And they're in the aerosol that they put out. There's harmful chemicals such as diacetyl. These are the technical. Chemical linked to lung disease. They call it popcorn lung. They have volatile organic compounds. I think these are VOCs, such as benzene, found in car exhaust, having metals such as nicotine, tin, and lead. And when you're exposed to their secondhand vape, it's just not secondhand smoke, so that's just like a bonus. So if it wasn't just a student making their own decision, just like in other instances, making decisions for others around them. And then, as Dave mentioned, there's always the wonderful opportunity that the e-cig might explode. Most often when they're charging, we perhaps have all seen the one of the guy when it exploded in his pocket. And that was not a pretty sight. It was just, And in 2016, the FDA, FAA, decided that they didn't want to have possible exploding devices on airlines either. And so, we're not the only one concerned about that. And then there's the dual use. So studies are now showing it's been just long enough that young people who have experimented with e-cigs are more apt than those who have not to try other tobacco products. Also amongst high school students who are already using other tobacco products, there was a report in 2015 indicating that just a hair over 65% of them are trying e-cigarettes. So, it's like great. Even if it's true that there isn't the tar in an e-cig that there is in a combustible, oh yay, we can have both. And it's sadly an e-cig can make it so that an individual doesn't try as hard to get off of nicotine that has them addicted because they don't have to smell as bad as they used to, and now their partner's not complaining as much. So we're getting to the end here. I guess so much. I could go in depth on any of these things, but there's an annual report called Monitoring the Future. It's done by the National Institute of Drug Abuse. It just came out about 4 weeks ago. I have to say that here we were kind of, going, oh my God. Between 2013, first of all, this was bad, and we're tracking E6. Between 2013 and 14, there was an increase in the 3 age groups that are monitored. It tripled. And now we're thinking, oh, this is not good. went up a little bit less in 2015, and we were feeling kind of hopeful when it went down some in 2016 and 17, which, by the way, parallel the suspensions that went, oh, look at that, it works here too, that Dave talked about. The fact that, it's sort of steady and then it went up. Sadly, it just about doubled this last year. So that 12th graders who reported vaping nicotine, without flavorings or other subjects that Don will talk about, during the past 30 days, that doubled from 11% to 21%. Amongst 10th graders, it was almost the same. They went from 8.2% to 16.1%. This is really has the Surgeon General in a quandary. This is the largest one-year increase ever seen for a substance in the history of this survey. And, that's why there are more, any increase in nicotine is alarming. Well, we know where that goes with brain development. So the greater risk of becoming addicted, and whether they're doing that through an e-cig or through a traditional combustible, and it's got to be a high priority. And I'm not the only one who feels like that. We've got almost a daily bombardment of, and it's happening faster and quicker because this is a worldwide issue. On the bottom left, some years back, our state health officer put out a report on e-cigs. CNN just had something, why is vaping so dangerous for teens? That's the one that said, oh, by the way, there's no way to get them off, they get not, but that there isn't a protocol. The e-cigarettes are poisoning pets. I thought if you didn't care about those kids, it's the dog, The FDA is paying attention, although since 2009, they could have been regulating electronic cigarettes. I'm just saying, if sometimes you wonder, well, why don't we just let them do that? Why would we want to have your support on perhaps considering passing a tobacco retail license coordinating flavors when, after all, the FDA is doing it 2009 to 2018. That'll give you an idea. We've got a show and tell for you later. You'll have your very own copy of the Surgeon General's advisory on e-cigarettes.
So actually, the board has the article on the top left, the article on the top right, and this advisory. They got all three of those.
Oh, well, never
as
mind.
part of their packet.
You have those ahead of time. You were looking ahead at the answers. The Surgeon General doesn't do advisories real often. I think the opioid epidemic. And this is not something you want to win. But sadly, there are more youth now using electronic cigarette products than any of the alcohol, the drugs, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, I'm going to quote somebody from Health and Human Services. It says, America's youth are facing a public health crisis that threatens an entire generation. Skyrocketing use of nicotine products brought on by access to flavored products in particular. Use of these products, including e-cigarettes, menthol cigarettes, and cigars, put our youth at risk for a lifetime of nicotine addiction. And so, we're not losing another generation to big tobacco. E-cigarettes are now the top risk substance used by teenagers, according to the latest U.S. figures. E-cigarettes pose a significant and avoidable health risk. We talked about the possibility of addiction, long-term harm to brain development, respiratory health. They are associated with the use of other products that can do even far greater damage. Not only are teens users of popular vaping devices like Juul, but they stand to re-glamorize it. We have really made it socially unacceptable to smoke. I would think about, you used to see lots and lots of those packs of cigarettes around now. We risk now re-glamorizing it and normalizing something that we worked so hard to undo. So it's important now for us to prevent harm to youth from e-cigarettes. We know how to take action, and it's up to us to do it. Thank you.
stuff, which is why she's one of our partners.
I'm really here at all.
Next partner, Carly Moore is the newest partner of the people that we're having speak tonight. Carly is incredibly connected for us in terms of potential funding, community work, action. We have the Department of Justice grant that we wrote last spring that allowed us to bring back the SROs, the school resource officers. It also gave us funding to put in many different preventative actions that we're going to do. Without Carly, we would not have known about that grant. So she's the one that has made us aware of it, and she's also one of our technical advisors as we're putting this in place. Carly Moore.
Hello. I work at Impact Sonoma, which is tobacco and nicotine prevention for Sonoma County Public Health. And we are considered the local lead agency from the state's California Tobacco Control Program to coordinate all prevention and tobacco control through public health in the county. And we work with the other counties and other grantees from the state to do that across the state. Some of my presentation is going to overlap with Pam's because she went over our 5-minute limit. But it was good because she was very thorough. But as she mentioned, the Surgeon General has declared this an epidemic, which is good in a way because he's one of our leaders, which when that happens, funding will open up for us to deal with this problem. I wanted to show you what kinds of devices there are, as Pam did. I would point out a few different ones. There's the ones along the bottom that do trace the progression of their development. The one on the left is similar to the Juul. And the pink one at top is a Soren, and that's another real popular one that can be mistaken as a highlighter.
It looks like an
And then one of them inhaler. It looks like an asthma inhaler.
Yeah, that's a new one that I never heard of until I'd done my research. It's called a Puffit.
It's called a what?
Puffit, Puffit. And so the design of them is getting more to blend in with normal products so that they can be used inconspicuously. We've all heard, as Pam said, that, oh, it's vapor water, it's harmless, but it's not.
I didn't talk about those.
But it states all the chemicals that are known for cancer and birth defects. Not yet. I wanted to show you a video, it's under 2 minutes, to really capture the strength of social media and the influence it has on youth. You probably are aware there are influencers on Instagram, Snapchat, that are actually paid by these companies sometimes to promote their products. And through that, they're just normal use, they're fun with it, it's really showing the kids how to use it and glamorize it.
In case you're new, everyone at my school, Jules.
Something that is literally sweeping the nation. Everywhere I go, it is a whole thing.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
Today's video is going to be a Juul sesh. We got the mango pod.
The cool cucumber.
Fruit medley.
I got this crown pod because I thought it would be festive.
It tastes great.
Well, if you want a head rush, definitely the Juul.
It's really strong.
My God, bro, these are the biggest snake bush.
The Juul challenge. You gotta hit this thing as many times as you can.
We're doing the Juul Hot Box Insane New Buzz Challenge.
I
have some accessories.
Jewelry. Just type in charging case for jewelry. Rolo bag. Solar drop. Ghost stick.
This one is watermelon. It is literally so good.
Yeah, good choice. Truth Initiative puts out, it's a great resource if you ever want it. They've got good articles, they're staying up on the most current information, and they definitely try to stay connected with youth to understand what's happening. You heard some of the people in the videos talk about a Nick hit, getting the Nick buzz, all the paraphernalia and the fun around it is definitely just emulating that drug use culture, making it fun. So where do they get these devices?
This is the basis of how we measure how a student's going through their school year every year. Again, as we did our orientation, and there's been other presentations to the board that have talked about this, we want that stable performance triangle for every student every year. One side is academics, the other side is behavior, the bottom is the attendance. And every year that student is building that performance triangle. Elementary, those 7 years are just critical in that foundation. Junior high, into high school. Now we're towards the end of high school, we're starting to drive. They're in their own vehicles. It's like their own mobile home in terms of the privacy and what they start doing in those settings. And then that all-important 12th grade year, all of our site discipline hearings are focusing on where that child's performance triangle is in that moment. And so, we go through and we do this site discipline hearing. We're also looking at the potential for ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. Many times when we have a student that is committing an offense that's a violation of Ed Code 48900, there is some connection to ACEs. Not every time, but lots of my clients, the students that I wind up with talking with, there is some possible connection to trauma-informed issues where that child has had some type of adverse experiences in their lifetime. The goal of that, again, is to prevent recidivism. And so we bring tools to that meeting as well as all of that information and anything we've got. So if you'll pull up that first tool, you want to go back there. And so this is our classic behavior contract. And so this has revisions in it now based upon advice from counsel, because we have been focusing on 48900C and paraphernalia. And so all of those ed codes are now in our contract, because that possession of a vape device is a violation of every single one of those portions of the ed code. The idea behind this is don't do it again, right? It happened, we did the suspension, we don't want it to happen again, because the second violation of that type of significant thing means we're going to be talking about bringing you to the board in a referral for an expulsion, which means you leave our district schools. We don't want that to happen. We want that to be a deterrent. This serves as something they can now say to their peers, dude, I already got caught once. I can't do that. I can't hold your stuff. I can't go use with you. If I get caught again, I'll get expelled. It serves as that frontal lobe reminder for them that they've already had this experience. And so that's the idea behind learning theory. We want to build as many of those practical resources as we possibly can. The suspension, the site discipline hearing, and then the contract. The contract has a second phase to it that we've added about 5 years ago. And go ahead and scroll up. We want that student back in school as soon as possible. We're not going to have that meeting 5 days in a row. We're going to offer that student to come back to school as soon as possible. And so we're going to do that. Typically it's 3 days, sometimes it's fewer. But we want to know really what was in that device. And if you're taking this type of risk on campus, we want to know, are you actually using other substances? So we want you to go and do a lab conducted urine analysis. And that will tell us whether or not there's anything in your system during your use in this time period. There's 2 labs there that charge money for these, $25, $28. One's here in Petaluma, one's in Roanoke Park. We have labs at our Petaluma Health Clinics at San Antonio and at Casa Grande. Those are free. And so that UA is submitted, the sample is submitted, the test goes to the lab, that result is sent to the family then shares it with us. Well, why not just a supermarket test? Supermarket test tells you two things, yes or no. If it's yes, we don't know if it's 50 nanograms per milliliter or 500 or 3,000. That baseline information that we get from that lab test help us design that next step of intervention, which is the counseling piece. If we have a really low level intervention, or really low level of THC or whatever substance, we can probably address that issue with one of the school counselors. If it's a higher level, then we probably want to do a referral to one of our community partners, our mental health counselors on site, one of the health center counselors, DAC, Petaluma People Services, U-Thrive, all of our different partners, we're going to be doing that. Muir Woods, all of these different facilities we're connected with, and we can do referrals to those sites. Kaiser, our local partner, also has many different types of intervention and facilities. So all of our counselors, all of us have access to this information. That UA with that THC level gives us that information so that we have a singly designed intervention for that student. We also do a parent-student education night that's held actually in this very room. And we wind up doing one about every 2 months. The next one is scheduled for January 29th. We're expecting to have about 14 to 15 students here, and so we'll have an equal number of parents. So there will be 30 to 40 people in this room, and we'll spend an hour and a half talking about the potential dangers of substance use on the adolescent brain. And there's a lot of science around that, and so we spend that evening focusing on that. As we have used this as one of our prevention tools, right, we have right about a 90% success rate. So just the first tool by itself, about 1 in every 2, about 50% of students, we have recidivism. With this, it's 1 out of every 10. And so this is our practice and this is our protocol. And
I'm
that's,
sorry, what was the 1 and 2?
so with just that first contract, just the behavior contract,
Yeah.
it was about a 50% success rate. With them combined, we're at about 90% in terms of prevention of recidivism. Okay. When we talk about this protocol and this response that we have, this isn't the first time we've used this form of practice in the things that we have. Can you get this one? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, past issues and things that we've looked at. About 13 years ago, we had a significant amount of gang behavior happening on our campuses. We had it where there were multiple suspensions, there were referrals for expulsion. It was a big issue for us on our campuses. We used the same type of contract, the same type of restorative justice process to alleviate and really scale back the amount of gang-related issues we have on our campuses, and it's been that way for more than a decade. After we addressed that, the movie Fight Club came out. Oh, what a wonderful impact that was on our campuses, because there were many, many of our young men that wanted to start their own fight club. And so we had a multitude of fights that were taking place. Again, we responded with the same practice in terms of applying these don't do it contracts, and then here's our response, our prevention. Here's how we do it one student at a time. Here's how we make sure that we individualize that response and we prevent the recidivism. After that, we had medical marijuana legalized. And so we went from about 8 marijuana suspensions a year district-wide to 48 suspensions in the very first semester. And since then, it's about 100 suspensions a year that are marijuana related. We're keeping it flatlined, right? And so that's been our response to marijuana use, but it's an uphill battle because now recreational marijuana has been legalized. Marijuana is much stronger than it was even just in 2009. But we have a flat line on that, and we're doing the same type of response in recidivism. After that, we had the cyberbullying things that came about. So social media really took off. We had just a spate of cyberbullying happening across all of our campuses. Again, we go through our process, our legal response, what's allowable within the bounds of the Ed Code and board policy, What do our community partners tell us? How can we get the best information? How can we support our students? And then we have a consistent response site to site. And so when we look at our discipline data over time, and you've seen this, and it's going to be very small, but when we look at our practices before we started doing this, we had about 1,200 suspensions a year district-wide. It was almost 2,800 days of suspension that were taking place. And when we look at our classroom, it was about 18% of our students. So about 5 students in each classroom had some form of suspension during the course of their school year. 0405 is when we began using this protocol, 0506, and these contracts and the restorative practices around this. We have got it down to where we're at about 500 suspensions a year, plus or minus. It's been that way for the last 5 or 6 years. We had a jump last year in response to the fires, the legalization of recreational marijuana. We're thinking that probably had that. We went back down a little bit last year, and we're hoping to have lower numbers again. Again, this is that full response. This is what we're going to, and we want those numbers to continue to decline. But as I said, we've hit that plateau, and so we've kind of flatlined in terms of those numbers. So go ahead and go to that next one. We want to make sure that we start talking about what's next, because we want to keep going lower in terms of the suspensions. We want to reduce the amount of behaviors and the issues. So we're doing lots of trauma-informed educational practices at our school sites. We're training individual teachers. They're talking about their campus-wide universal prevention strategies, their campus-wide targeted strategies, and then they're also talking about, as individual teachers, what they're doing in their classroom. And so we're adding all that information that's going to be available. If you will open that top document. This is a disaggregated set of data that we share with every school site every year. We've been doing this for the last 7 years. When we look at the details of this, it talks to us about our Hispanic students, and that 33% of our students are Hispanic, but they're 44% of our suspensions. That's a gap for us that we need to address. In the last few years, that's been down to just a few points. And so we need to look at this. Does it have something to do with the wall and the current presidency and the climate, and is there anxiety over that? It's 1 year of data. We can't say that that's the only thing, but we need to make sure we're paying attention to this. When we talk about our EL students, 12.5% of our population, 13.5% of our suspensions, that's where it should be. These next 2 populations are the ones that we really need to make sure we're putting energy on. And these are also the populations that the cigarette, tobacco, nicotine companies are targeting, right? These are our students with disabilities and our students that are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And our gaps in the last 5 years have been between 20 and 30 points in those 2 demographic areas, which is why we're really focusing on the ACEs and the trauma-informed care. Each school site is getting all of their disaggregated data every year. We're getting help from the county because we don't have a homeless set of data in here, which is now something that's significant that we'll be adding this coming school year and something that we're looking at right now. Each school site gets their individualized pieces of data on
rules for defiance of authority suspensions. This charge is unwarranted and heavy-handed. Students are being penalized with this discipline, even if they comply with the staff and do everything that they are asked. The Petaluma City School District policy has 18 specific violations that warrant a defiance of authority suspension, and they're spelled out. And none of those are for inhaling nicotine or any other similar violation. The district is violating the state education code, which places nicotine vaping clearly in the category of tobacco product. When a local policy conflicts with a state policy has the final say. The district's own policy, BR 5144, quote, in the event of any conflict between the language of these rules and the provisions of the education code, such education code provisions shall control. The state education code section 58901 states that smoking and tobacco product are defined by section 22950.5 C through D of the Business Professions Code. That code defines smoking partly, this is part of the definition here, as the use, including the use of an electronic smoking device that creates an aerosol or vapor. And tobacco product as an electronic device that delivers nicotine or other vaporized liquids to the person inhaling from the device, including but not limited to electronic cigarettes, etc. The Petaluma School District is violating its own regulations as well, and state law, which specifically defines the drug paraphernalia suspension category as those items described in section 11014.5 of California Health and Safety Code. That code defines drug paraphernalia as, quote, objects designed for use or marketed for use in introducing cannabis, hashish, or hashish oil in the human body. Many of these devices, including the one our student had, is not one of those devices. The school district has acknowledged that many students are being disciplined that are using nicotine or nicotine-free products. Again, I'm not condoning that use, I'm against it, and I support the education and the change of behavior. But right here in the code, it's not supporting it. There's another problem. It's inconsistent with the discipline. It's inconsistent with discipline. The district is in violation of Petaluma School Board Policy 5144, which states, quote, staff shall enforce disciplinary rules fairly, consistently, and without discrimination. The rules aren't being enforced fairly or consistently. Students suspected of vaping nicotine this school year have not all been suspended, nor have they been all charged with